David and Alina were excited for their trip to the mountain destination, 450 miles away. They had been planning it for months and were looking forward to the adventure. As they drove through the thick forest, they marveled at the beauty surrounding them. The tall trees, lush greenery, and the occasional wildlife made the journey even more thrilling. But as they were driving deeper into the forest, their car suddenly broke down. David tried to restart it, but to no avail. The clock was ticking, and it was almost midnight. They were stranded in the middle of the forest, with no help in sight. Just as they were starting to panic, they saw an old man walking towards them. He looked frail and his clothes were tattered, but he had a kind smile on his face. He offered to help them and said that there was a car workshop a few miles away. Relieved, David and Alina agreed to go with him. The old man got into their car without asking for permission and directed them towards the workshop. He sat in the back seat, and his presence made the couple feel uneasy. But they brushed it off, thinking that he was just an old man trying to help. As they drove through the dark and eerie forest, the old man started humming a strange tune. David and Alina couldn't quite place the tune, but it sent chills down their spine. They tried to strike up a conversation with the old man, but he remained silent, focusing on the road ahead. After what seemed like hours, they finally arrived at the car workshop. The old man got out of the car and said he would wait outside while they got their car fixed. David and Alina were relieved to see other people at the workshop, but they couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. The mechanic at the workshop told them that it would take a few hours to fix their car, and they could stay in a nearby cabin until it was done. They thanked the old man and headed towards the cabin, their minds still reeling from the strange encounter. As they settled into the cabin, they couldn't help but feel like they were being watched. The eerie silence of the forest only added to their unease. David and Alina decided to get some rest while they waited for their car to be fixed. But just as they were about to drift off to sleep, they heard a loud banging on the door. Alina woke up with a start, and David went to check who it was. As he opened the door, he saw the old man standing there, his face contorted into a sinister grin. David tried to shut the door, but the old man was too strong. He pushed his way into the cabin, and Alina screamed in terror. The old man's face seemed to morph into something inhuman, and he lunged towards them. David and Alina ran out of the cabin, their hearts pounding with fear. They could hear the old man's maniacal laughter behind them as they ran deeper into the forest. They were lost and terrified, not knowing where to go. As they stumbled through the forest, they came across a clearing with a rundown cabin in the center. It seemed like the perfect place to hide, so they went inside and barricaded the door. But their respite was short-lived as they heard the old man's laughter getting closer. They searched the cabin for a weapon and found an old axe. David took it in his hand, ready to defend himself and Alina. But as the old man burst through the door, David froze in fear. The old man's eyes were now glowing red, and he had a menacing aura around him. He lunged towards David, but at the last moment, Alina struck him with the axe. The old man fell to the ground, and they thought it was all over. But to their horror, he started getting back up, his body contorting in unnatural ways. David and Alina knew they had to get out of there before it was too late. They ran out of the cabin and into the forest, not caring where they were going. They could still hear the old man's laughter echoing through the forest, and they knew they were in grave danger. They ran for what seemed like hours, until they came across a group of people camping in the forest. They told them about the old man and the cabin, and the campers agreed to help them. They called the authorities, and soon the old man was taken into custody. The authorities told David and Alina that the old man was a notorious serial killer who had been living in the forest for decades. He had been luring unsuspecting travelers into the forest and killing them. David and Alina shuddered at the thought of what could have happened to them if they hadn't escaped in time. They returned home, traumatized by their encounter with the old man. They couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, and they made sure to never travel through that forest again. But the memories of that fateful night would haunt them forever. The forest had turned from a beautiful paradise into a nightmare they would never forget.